Welcome back, everybody, to the Catalyst Pharmacy podcast. I know we've been out for a while, really prior to probably Thanksgivings when we wrapped up right after NCPA, and then we all had lives, and Mark got sick. But we're back. We're leading off 2025 with Michael Muñiz. He is a pharmacist / owner down in Harlingen, Texas. The pharmacy is called My New RX, but does a ton of work in functional medicine, working with doctors and patients alike. Sometimes the doctors are patients, around kind of how they approach it, like a really evidence-based perspective, which is great. And he talks about like resources where if a pharmacy wants to layer that into their practice and kind of be that trusted source for them. And I've heard pharmacies say we have patients asking about this. So he does a great job just explaining all the success stories, but also like where the resources are to go get into that. So again, I tell everybody, welcome to the new year, I guess. And sorry it's been so long, but hopefully everybody had a happy and safe holiday and holiday break. I know we're all swinging back into it. We got a pretty good lineup for the year already, kind of half booked already. So we'll be back this year, full schedule and all, and we'll take you there now. I tried you see on, I don't know, like Instagram, TikTok, you name it. Like you see those things that light up your whole room, but they're supposed to be like, I don't know, like a night sky or galaxy or whatever. I tried one of those just because I was like, maybe that'll help. I struggle sleeping. And it worked for me okay, but Marsha, it was so bright. It was actually so bright that Marsha's like, I can't sleep, dude. Like, what is this? So,
yeah, y'all are probably like that married couple in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yes.
When he puts all the lights and it hits the neighbor's house and it's so bright.
I was like, all right, babe, I'm going to turn these lights on. She's like, okay. Boom. I'm sleeping fine. She's like, I hate this. Like, all right. So we compromised, i.e. she won.
She won.
You're right. Yeah. So we compromise / she won. Man, so we, well, I didn't realize, and Brandon let me know, this is the first time you've been on the Catalyst podcast, but that seems, I should be thrown in jail for that, probably. But I know you've been on BTS with Will before and things like that, but this first time, and you're also the leadoff batter for the year in 25, which is like, I can't think of anybody better in order to help us lead off for 25, man. So
yeah, man.
Appreciate you for having me.
I was just like freaking out. I was like, what? They want me again? I guess I didn't do too bad the last time, you know?
Of course.
But you know what? I actually have patients that, they're like, signing up, to do things with us here at the clinic. And they're like, oh man, I watched your podcast. And I'm like, which one? I was like, I've only done one. They're like, yeah, it was on a Pioneer website. The other's like, really?
They must have looked you up then.
Dude, yeah, and that was a long time ago, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, that was them probably trying to get some social proof maybe before they walk in the door, maybe. I don't know.
No, that's exactly what they were trying to do. They're like, who is this guy? Because I don't do a whole lot of marketing yet. I mean, my business partner on the clinic side is very like, she wants to do things at her rate, and her pace. And I'm just like, I'm ready to go. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
And so working with her has been kind of difficult at times, but I understand where she wants, everything to be lined up before.
Makes sense.
But just like with anything, like if you don't start, you don't know what to fix, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. Again, I go back to my relationship with my wife where I'm probably more measured like your partner, and she's probably like, let's just go. We'll figure it out. Let's just go. We'll figure it out.
Yep. That's the way I am. I mean, with a lot of things, and people ask like I was talking to a friend, and I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna be on this podcast thing and talking about different things. They're like, okay, so what are you gonna be talking about? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just gonna talk
everything. Like what Michael's up to.
What do they want to know?
Well, that's good, man. Well, I got a list of things, man, to talk through anyway. So,
Connect 2025. Where pharmacy professionals come together to be inspired, connect, and grow. What can you expect? Hands-on learning sessions, networking opportunities. Bring fresh ideas back to your team. Don't miss out. Register now at connectpharmacyconference.com.
Well, I guess like I haven't started. This is the first podcast of 25. And so I'll start off going just like, let's recap 24 a little bit and you and your pharmacy. So you have, for people who don't know, if you don't know, can't believe you don't know, but Michael's in Harlingen, Texas. Is that still the correct? Okay,
That's
cool.
Uh-huh.
Yep. With is it still My New RX? And
Yep, My New RX Pharmacy.
My New RX Pharmacy there in Harlingen. You're also maybe is your political career a little winded down a little bit? You were vice president for Texas Pharmacy Association, and you were president too, correct? As well. So you had a good stint of Michael the politician for a while. I know you used to talk to you about all the different conversations you're having in Texas. I'll just say senator or Congress or whatever from that perspective. But I guess with 24 wrapping up, man, what was the key things for you that you saw or strategic stuff that you did get done or still want to get done?
So, yeah, I mean, 24 was good. It wasn't as good as the COVID years, just we had so much traffic, foot traffic coming in. And even before COVID with people with like health wellness, that was a really big thing. And then COVID hit and everybody kind of stopped. And then people are starting to get back into it. So that was what we started seeing in 24.
Okay.
It's kind of like the rebuilding of people getting back into their health and wellness and wanting to go see their providers and getting their hormones checked. And, so prescription volume did improve in 2024. I think some of the other big things that I'm very much a part of the Texas Pharmacists Association still.
Yep.
I'm a past president, nothing really except sitting on a couple of committees and boards here and there. Really committees, isn't not board, but it's committees. And then just being a part of like the legislation and trying to see like what we're going to push forward. That's what I'm still doing. I love doing that. Anything I can do for independent pharmacy and just pharmacy in general,
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about it. And so I always want to put us at the forefront of what's going on within healthcare, right? I think we're one of the most underutilized professions still to this day.
Yeah.
Even though we've been pushing for a lot of these things to happen. 2019, I worked with my Representative Eddie Lucio III. We got, payment parity passed. We got provider status passed. And, I was one of the first ones to start medical billing, for the pharmacy and seeing what we could get paid for, what was allowed, what wasn't allowed. It was great, understanding and trying to figure out, okay, this is what we can do. This is what's possible. And then 24 is still it's everything just building on top of that and working with other people across Texas that are doing other innovative things like, hey, did you know I could build this or I could do that? And like, no, it's great, keep pushing the envelope. Let's make sure you're following these rules and making sure you're following these things. And then the clinic side, so within our pharmacy, we have different walls and we have like a health food store that is kind of like, it's winding down. I think we're probably going to close that. And the only reason being is that H-E-B is right down the street from us.
Oh, okay.
Like a block away.
Yeah.
And their store managers would come to our store and actually shop. And then they started carrying the products.
They're like, what do I want to steal from Michael's pharmacy?
Exactly. What do I want to steal from this real small $30,000 a month revenue in foods and carry at our stores, right? And so, it's one of those things, but I'm glad, because even before all that, I would go to H-E-B and I would talk to them like, hey, man, can you carry this product? Can you carry this? And they're just like, no. So then I opened the store and then all of a sudden they're like, whoa, what's going on here? And then they started coming in buying stuff. They're like, well, maybe we should start carrying this stuff. And so then that kind of did. I feel that was part of the push for them to start getting a little bit more into carrying healthier foods.
Yeah. I feel like they're making a concerted effort in that regard as well. So that's, if anything, it's helping a broader scope, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's helping out the public, right? And so for me, it's always about, helping out just everyday people, right? Helping out humanity, really not about, different types of deals that like, hey, man, these are healthier options that we need to be exposed to. So We started the clinic really January, maybe December last year.
Right.
But it's just been a slow process trying to get, the system up and running. We've already switched to 3 different EMR systems.
What did y'all find? I guess can we spend a little bit of time on that? Like, first, can we back up and go, hey, look, what kind of clinic is it? And then did it take a minute to figure out, hey, look, this is the tech stack I need to make this work for what we're trying to do?
Yeah. So, in 2015, December 2015 is when I got my fellowship in metabolic nutritional medicine.
Right. Yeah.
And so 2016 was a big push. I was still at my uncle's and my cousin's pharmacy, Muñiz Pharmacy. I was working with them, and we were pushing a lot of functional wellness, right? Functional health. And then, I wanted more impact, more time with my patients. So that's when I opened up my own,
right,
and doing a cash only pharmacy with some consultations with patients. Well, as pharmacists, we have a lot of limitations, right? We're not able to prescribe.
Right.
And so it was finding the right partner to do those things with, right? And somebody that understands what you're doing and that has validation. So it's a functional medicine clinic, really focusing on longevity.
Okay.
We do about 70 different biomarker tests as an initial assessment.
Oh, wow.
All right. Looking at your risk of having heart attack, stroke, not just a basic lipid panel. We look at like lipoprotein A, apoprotein B, homocysteine levels. We look at your genetics. If you've done Ancestry.com, 23andMe, we'll grab that genetic data and look and see if there's any nutrients that your body can't produce on its own. And so we make sure you can get those nutrients.
Okay.
So it's, there's some weight loss, there's some hormone replacement therapy, but all of those labs are all checked to make sure we figure out what's going on with the patient.
Okay.
And so that's what the clinic is set up as.
Okay.
Is a longevity. So we'll do some acute care, but that's not what we want to do. A lot of our patients, we still send them to those other providers to do those things. We're still vetting a lot of specialties. So like a cardiologist that really believes in functional medicine,
okay,
an endocrinologist that believes in functional medicine, an oncologist because when you start looking at the different specialties, a lot of these guys are just like, well, no, I don't believe in that. I believe in traditional medicine and that's it.
Right.
I was like, yes, but at the same time, we got to look at some of the other things to make the patient healthier as well. And if there's something wrong, we're going to send them to just for validation, make sure that there is nothing more problematic with the patient and get fixed. So about 15 patients of ours are physicians.
Oh, really?
And so, yeah.
Okay.
And
all
so,
right.
For Vanessa, she's my other business partner. She's a physician assistant here in Texas, Vanessa Covarrubias. And she is always like, oh my gosh, what do I do with the doctors? Like, dude, don't worry. You're more competent in this field
you're the
than
expert.
they are.
Yeah, you're the expert. Yeah.
And so we're always just, constantly learning. And it's crazy because she's like, oh, man, sometimes I wish every patient was the same. And I was like, yeah, but then that's not personalized care because you want to see what's exactly going on with every specific patient. And so we haven't been able to make a complete template of just, okay, this is how you treat everything.
This is our protocols for every, 100%. And honestly, the way I feel like at least for me knowing you, as long as I've known you, like that's probably not what you enjoy doing all the time either. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's not the type of thing you want to practice, I guess, from your perspective, I imagine is, hey, we do these 8 things and this is how we do them. And that's it. So that makes sense. Hey, so I want to drill down into the functional medicine part and like the patient profile. So like, I don't know everything about functional medicine myself, and I'm sure there's other people listening that goes, hey, I've heard of it. This is what it is. Or maybe they have their own preconceived notions about it. What type of patients really coming in to your clinic and getting help, and what type of help are they asking for?
So a lot of these patients, because no marketing, but a lot of the patients are like word of mouth, right? They're like, our friends coming here and they said that you've helped them with this and that. A lot of the patients are they're tired of traditional medicine. They're coming in and they're like already on 12 meds and they're like, I've heard that you can help get us off medications. And I'm like, well, yeah, we got to look at foundational and, build on those things and see what's going on. So a majority of our patients are that.
Gotcha. So already on a robust regimen in some way. I'll just say 6 meds plus, and trying to figure out a different path.
Different path. That's a majority. I would say probably about 70 to 80% of the patients are that. There's probably another good 15% that are just strictly hormones.
Okay.
Yeah, we get some that want weight loss.
Sure.
And then I would say the last portion are the healthy ones. And these are the guys that are, and girls that are, doing ultra marathons. They're doing marathon training. They want to get better. So we do VO2 max testing on them here. And majority of our patients too, after they've started with us, we try and get their VO2 max tested to make sure, because, some of the measures of longevity that they'll say is if you have a high VO2 max, right? So we'll test them for that. And then, muscle grip strength, right?
Okay.
So we can test them with, dumbbells and stuff to make sure that they can hold up like 75% of their weight for over a minute, right? And so those are some things that are, things that you can look at to measure longevity with patients.
Okay.
And it's always about structural support. So it's always about, we do in bodies on them, measure their muscle mass, measure their fat mass.
Okay.
We encourage resistance training, at least 3 to 4 days a week of resistance training. And then, 30 minutes of walking every day. And that's like their basic cardio. And if they can't do walking, then we recommend infrared sauna. So here at the pharmacy, we also have an infrared sauna. We have a cold plunge. We have red light therapy that we do all here.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. So I guess, can you spend some time, you said you have a bunch of, not a bunch, but you said like 15-ish physicians that also are your customers for this. I guess, can you explain a little bit or like go through the conversations with physicians about this stuff in general? You said some of are believers, some aren't, but like, what is that? Like, I always look for like how people like you who have gone through this and you've probably done as many wrong things as right things now about explaining this with physicians, what some of the lessons learned when you're like communicating who you are, but also what you're doing with the physicians.
So yeah, it's a lot of wrongs. Over time you fail so many times that you improve, right? It's always learning.
You're just sitting here staring at a failure right here. I just keep
no.
Like in a good way is what I mean by that.
Times, and I still haven't overcome the failure. The failure is still here, and I'm like right here trying to get past it. But to me, the failures are what actually makes us better, right? If we don't fail at anything, what's there to improve, right? And so you're always looking for those improvements. But yeah, working with physicians, I mean, I've been a pharmacist since 2012. A lot of doctors trust me when I would go out and market with them, so they have that connection with me. And so then what we do is we just, hey, come by the pharmacy, let's sit, let's have a talk, a conversation, and then we just explain what we do. And when we're just explaining, and mainly it's just what we're trying to do is letting them know that there's other options for their patients.
Sure.
Right. That's all we're trying to do. Well, then at the end of those conversations, they're like, okay, so how do I become a patient?
Yeah. So how do I
like, forget about my patients. How do I become a patient? Yeah. And, it's all about basic things. And so when we're explaining stuff, they're like, you know what? That's true. Like you're not just going and picking things off. Like there's a whole biochemical pathway that needs to be addressed. And you're right, we're not addressing these things. And, a lot of times their nutrition is off, right? And their nutrients are off. I mean, the food that we consume from the store, even if it's a fresh veggie, it doesn't have the nutritional value of what it did 20, 40 years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, over farming we don't put all the nutrients back into the soil and all this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of different pieces that come along with it, but we don't have that. And so when we're explaining things to the doctor's like, man, you know what? This is true. Like, how do we improve this? And I'm like, well, this is how I would recommend that we do it. And so when we're doing a lot of things, we always, and even when we're talking to our patients and our doctors are like, look, when you build a house, you need a foundation. There's no way you can start with the roof and have a solid roof and have a crappy foundation. If you have a crappy foundation, it's going to fall at some point. I go, that's just the way our body is. So we have to give it a proper foundation. And so we have a vitamin pack that we recommend, and there's other ones out there that we've seen,
Sure.
real specialized to your genetics and stuff like that. But just for us, just to do everything as a baseline with patients, we use one, and it's called Alpha Base from Orthomolecular.
Okay.
And that's like our number one seller, besides a couple other things. But we sell so much of that because people feel the difference. They're like, wow, you know what? I don't have to buy 10 bottles of supplements.
Yeah.
Everything is in this little packet, right? You get 500 milligrams of vitamin C, you get 200 milligrams of magnesium, and a whole bunch of other things.
And you're going to, like, a little window into Mark's laziness. It's also hard to eat all of that. And I know Mark's like, stay out of Taco Bell. Like, I get it. But hey, I have to feel like I have to eat like a pound of blueberries. Like, it's just tough to do every day. So
yeah, to get the amount of things that you need. I mean, just like when we look at cruciferous veggies for the indole 3-carbinol and stuff, the good components inside there, you got to eat like 12 servings of that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, who's going to eat 12 servings of cruciferous veggies? I mean, if that was the only thing left on the planet, that's all we could eat. Yeah, I think a lot of people could do it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, those are things that we have to look at to kind of see, okay, what does your body need? What is your body deficient in? So as a foundation, we use that with everybody. So a lot of other doctors, when they'll come in, I still remember this one doc, really good friend of mine. His wife's a physician also, and he comes in, he goes, my wife told me to come see you. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, what's going on? And he's just like, well, I don't know. She told me to come see you. And I'm like, okay, well, do you have any labs? And he's like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, I need labs to know what's going on in your body.
Yeah.
And then he starts talking about like his testosterone levels, and like, my testosterone is very low. And he goes, but I've been chronically low for a long time. And like, all right, cool. And like, what's the lowest? He goes, at one point it was at 38. And I'm like, that's like a female number, not a guy number.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, I don't know what's going on. And so his wife ran some labs, and then, but before he left that first visit, and it was more of just like a discovery visit, right? Just kind of figure out, like, what do you need from me?
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, well, what are you going to give me? And I'm like, well, I don't know what's going on in your body. And then he's just like, okay. And I go, I need to know before we even come up with a plan for you. And I go, look, doc, there's one thing, whether you're the sickest or the healthiest person, I'm going to give you something for your foundation. And I go, and this is the Alpha Base pack. Here's what I want you to do. This is how you take it. And he's like, all right, cool. So he took it. And then he brought back the labs about a week later that I had asked them to get drawn. And we looked at him, and I go, okay, you're low here. He had some issues with his pituitary. So worked on a bunch of different things. Within 6 months, finally, we found the right, regimen for him. We put him on like some chaseberry, even though he had been using another product before and not seen any results. But we put him on a certain chaseberry, and he gets the bottle and he looks at it. And he's like, Michael, it says for menstrual cycles. And I'm like, yeah, don't worry about that. That's not what we're using it for.
Right.
But let's just try it. And we tried it, and 3 weeks later, his testosterone went from like 130 to 890.
Oh.
Yeah. So without having to look at anything else, I mean, we looked at all the labs, right? But if most people, when they're drawing those labs, are not going to look at a prolactin level. They don't look at that. But if prolactin is elevated, that's going to suppress LH-FSH production. And so by using that in this patient, lowered his prolactin, raised his LH and FSH, and now his testosterone has hit between 850 and 900 for the past 6 months,
Dang.
And he was just like, this is crazy. I've never felt this good.
I bet he feels great now.
Yeah, he does. And he's just like,
great.
I've seen 8 physicians before I came to see you.
Wow.
And I'm just like, well, this is what I do, functional medicine. He goes, I'm a total believer in what you do.
Yeah, probably came in as a super skeptic too, I bet.
Oh, he did. Yeah, he was like, what supplement are you going to give me now?
Yeah, right.
What vitamin are you going to give me? Yeah, so when you make them believers, that's when they're starting to be like, okay, well, what you're doing is right. And then what's good is you have a lot of other doctors that are starting to look at other things. So a lot of doctors that we know followed Dr. Peter Attia.
Yeah, I've seen him talk.
And so they'll come in and they'll start like, I read his book, and they talk about all these different things. What tests do you run? How do you run them? And we talk about all the different things. And then one of the doctors is just like, okay, you know what you're talking about. And, yeah, I want to become a
That's
patient.
been a
So
good,
then,
that's probably a good, obviously making inroads is never, with your physician network that's in your area, is never a bad thing. But it's got to help with like referrals, and all. That's a great place to start for like growing the business in general. Is you make the doctors believers. They'll refer patients that they feel like, I'm sure, are modifiable in some way, or maybe they've tried a bunch of other things and they're like, hey, look, you need to go see this group.
right, and that's what we see is like a lot of people is like, man, you know what? I saw this one person, and all they are is hormones. They call themselves functional medicine. I'm
Yeah,
like,
and all they're doing is just just doing hormone
pellets
stuff.
or
Yeah.
TRT injections and stuff, and it's like, no, it's more about that than just looking at those things. And we've had I know of 3 recent patients that come in that were on TRT, and these guys were ready to stroke out, man. I mean, their blood was super thick, their homocysteine levels were through the roof. So we pretty much, first thing we did is like, hey, you need to go donate blood.
Oh, wow.
And I go, if they won't take the blood donation, we'll send you to the oncologist so the oncologist can do a phlebotomy and pull blood out because you're going to stroke out, you know?
Wow.
And I'm like, so one of the guys, he was from Laredo, which is probably about 4 hours from us, but he was in town. And so he stopped by, we drew the labs, and I was like, dude, you need to go donate blood. And he's just like, why? So we explained everything to him. He was just like, oh, shoot, man. Like,
Yeah.
He goes, I go, so when did your doc that's giving you the TRT or your provider last run labs? And he's like, he ran them the first time, which was a year ago, and he hasn't ran any labs since. And I'm like,
dude,
yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
I go, there's no monitoring there. It's like, you got to monitor these things. If you're not monitoring it, like, bad things can happen, right? Just as with anything. But, getting those physician referral sources has been awesome, and we work with a whole bunch of different physicians. We've been working with a bunch of doctors, probably since I opened up the pharmacy here in 2020 during COVID, a lot of our doctors that don't understand hormones or haven't really done the training in hormones, they will draw the basic hormone panel and then they'll send them to me. And I'm like, hey, doc, this is what I recommend you treat the patient with or how you treat them. And they're like, okay, so then that's where I get probably about like 6 or 7 doctors that do that right now. I have one doctor or a nurse practitioner. He's really good, does his own dosings. And then we have the clinic, right? So a lot of patients that come to us, they'll come here just for supplements. And then they'll start talking and they're like, man, you know what? Like, my doctor won't do this. My doctor won't do that. So then like my technicians be like, well, you can set up a consultation and we can do this here. And so that's how we get a lot of them, patients as well. We could probably pick up more, and we're going to pick up more once we start marketing. We're just trying to get all the little things together, but it's one of those things that patients are looking for this stuff. They're tired of being sick.
Yeah. And it's a different conversation. I don't know, it's kind of difficult. I have a primary care doctor, and it's about as, I love them all, but it's about as functional as we get is, Mark, you need to lose weight, dude. and yes, and I'm on that journey. I'm a doctor. I'm trying. I'm about 20 down. I got about 20 more to go. But it's about as functional as you get. And if I kind of went in there one time, and I went on my own little I don't know if I call it like a bad event, but I had some inflammation. I was feeling terrible too. And I got to experience what it's like just in a little dose of like what that process can be and how difficult it can be. And like how much you have to fight for yourself a little bit in those spots where it's like, oh, we're going to refer you to, I had some lab values that were spiking. So I guess some type of like rheumatoid arthritis, so some type of rheumatologist in some way. Just getting in the door there was 4 months wait, right? So I'm just over here still feeling like crap. And then after that, they do some more labs and they're like, oh, well, I don't really have anything for you. I was like, man, it's like sick. So I get people getting exhausted with, I just say that to go, man, it resonates with me because I can just see patients getting exhausted and going, man, but sort of somebody told me in my area to be like, oh, hey, just go, why don't you go try this? Why don't you go try this functional person? Like it's all cash maybe, or it's not or whatever. But like, I would have done it then. I've gotten all those values in check now. I'm good and all that good stuff. But like for about a year, it was, something I was trying to figure out that it didn't seem like anybody had an answer / a path to go get an answer.
Right. And the thing is too, a lot of doctors, they'll run the labs and they're like, oh, everything is normal, but they're not optimal. That's another big thing is, are your labs in an optimal range? And so when patients come in, we're like, look, you're not optimal because of this right here. This has problems. This is how we're going to fix it. So when we talk to the doctors, and I was like, well, send me their labs. They'll text me their labs, or, they'll fax them over. We'll look at them. And while we're doing a Zoom call, I'll put them on the screen and share the screen with them. I go, look, this is not optimal right here. This is not optimal. This is how you fix this. This is going to cause a problem with this. And they're just like, yeah, we don't know how to do any of that stuff, And it's crazy because they're all looking for a drug, right? And to no fault of their own. It's
right.
not. It's their training, right?
Yeah,
Same thing with me as a pharmacist. My training is we learn drugs.
Yeah,
that's it. And it wasn't until I did this additional training in functional medicine where I found out there's a difference in using supplements. But in medicine, they always tell us, oh, you need a double placebo-controlled randomized trial, blah blah, and for supplements, you're not going to see that because a lot of time you can't patent something naturally occurring in nature.
Right. Yeah.
And so, what pharmaceutical company is going to invest
spend that money? And why would a supplement company do it?
And somebody else can come right around the corner and do the same thing. They're not going to do it. And so that's what we tell them, like, look, just give you something natural sometimes can actually help the gears turn. And so when we're looking at genetics and we look at methylation cycle and we look at the MTHFR SNP and MTRR, the COMT SNPs, and the way that they turn, when we're looking at like, if you don't have these specific nutrients, you can't get those wheels to move. And this is how you do it. And this is how we're going to give you stuff to fix it. And so on one of those patients, it was a physician's wife, and she'd been having a lot of anxiety, depression. Her anxiety was so bad she wouldn't leave her house. She was about 52 years old, and he goes, I've already sent her to like 3 of the top OBGYNs in Texas that were recommended. I've sent her to some of the top endocrinologists, and this is what they're recommending. They send me the labs, and I'm like, basically, I go, what they have her on is the wrong stuff. I go, but let's look at her labs, let's look at her genetics. So we looked at her genetics. Found it out she ended up having the MTHFR SNP, and so we changed her hormones a little bit. Vanessa changed her estrogen, pretty much pulled it off because she had a COMT SNP. So with the COMT SNP, she has a difficulty getting rid of estrogens, right? So if you give her estrogen, she has difficulty getting rid of it. You're just gonna make her worse, right?
Okay.
And so pulled that off, gave her some progesterone, a little bit of testosterone, and then put her on a troche that we make here that has methylfolate and methylcobalamin and riboflavin and P5P, which is active form of B6, and it's a sublingual tablet she puts underneath her tongue, dissolves. We gave her that. She started. We called her a week later just to follow up, and she's just like, I don't know what you all did, but I'm fine. And her husband's on this call too, and he's a physician, and he's just like, she's normal. She's gone outside for car rides. She's been doing this, and she has not left the house.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like, really? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I don't know what it is that you all do, but I believe in it. And so I was like, all right, well, we got to help. So then they started sending all their family members. So I think we take care of like 6 of their family members.
Oh, that's cool.
Now.
Yeah.
And so he's a believer now, and they all have thyroid issues, and it's like, well, a lot of it could be methylation issues because genetically. And so when we look at their genetics, sure enough, they have the MTHFR SNPs. Hey, okay, let's fix this, and it's done. Going back to supplements are naturally occurring things, things that occur naturally in nature cannot be patented. We had a patient that was bleeding for 3 months. And she's just like, I don't know what's going on. I've gone to my OBGYN, and they said, oh, it's because you yo-yo diet. And because that weight loss, that's causing you to.
That sounds so like I don't know. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it was like, Are you serious? He goes, yeah. And you know, we were actually at the movies that night, and then we had went to Wings and Rings and ate, because he's a good family friend of mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was me, her, another provider, and like the kids and stuff. And so we were just all hanging out and we were talking about this stuff. And her husband and I actually have known each other since like first grade, so, you know, so we've known each other forever. And we're still really good friends. And so I was just like, you know what? I go, have you done your genetics? And she goes, yeah. And I was like, okay, download your genetics. So while we were there at Wings and Rings, she downloads her genetics, sends it over to me, run it through a software real quick on my phone. Then I go, yeah, you have a COMT SNP. Your body can't metabolize estrogens correctly. So I go, but we're going to draw your labs. So Vanessa ordered her labs. You know, we get the estradiol back along with all the other labs. And her estradiol, normal range for a female should be between 30 and 80. She was at 668.
Holy smokes.
And I go, that's why you're bleeding. Your body's not getting rid of these estrogens the way it should. So then we put her on a supplement called CDG. The one we use is from Ortho, and it's CDG estrogen. Put her on that. Within 3 weeks, she stopped bleeding. She had been bleeding for 3 months.
Oh, wow. I bet you're like her hero. You know?
Oh yeah, she called me last night. She wants me to look at her daughter's genetics, because she went and got her daughter's genetics done and everything.
She might be prone to the same thing. Yeah.
And so we drew her labs, and it was like down to like 150. And I'm like, all right, cool. And so instead of taking it twice a day, just take it once a day for maintenance. And she's like, okay. And then about a week later, she started having her menstrual again, right? She's like, I'm bleeding again, Mike. And I'm like, that's your menstrual cycle. That's your normal menstrual cycle. That's
just your normal cycle now, right?
Like,
yeah.
And she's like, okay. And so she had normal cycles, and I think until last month. So there within about 8 months where it was normal cycles. And I was like, and she's like, yeah, I started bleeding again. I'm like, well, are you taking the CBG? She goes, no, I stopped because everything was normal. And I'm like, well, remember, your body can't metabolize estrogen. So you just need to be on this, at least one capsule daily, or just Monday through Friday, the rest of your life, or until finally your body's completely menopausal and you're not going to, you know, have those heavy menstruals. And she goes, you know what? She goes, yeah, when I started bleeding, it was already week 2. I was like, shoot, I got to get back on that supplement that they gave me to get on. And so when we talk to OBGYNs, you know, we're like, okay, if you have a patient that has high estrogen, this is what could be going on. And they're like, we have no idea what that is. And I'm like, yeah, because there is no drug to release it. So the doctors aren't taught that.
They're not really trained on it then. Yeah.
They're not trained on it. And that's the sad part about medicine, right? Is they're just, if here's a symptom, here's a lab, and here's a drug that's going to fix that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Instead of, okay, well, this is elevated. Okay, what am I going to do? I don't know.
Yeah,
you know?
That's where all the research money is spent, like you said. In that way. So, wow. Okay, so where can we all send our labs? I'm kidding. We'll put your email in the show notes. I'm kidding.
Oh, you can. I mean, so our website is healthyvitaclinic.com. We're working on that.
Yeah.
We're working on some stuff within New RX as well, and then Michael at My New RX. But you know, we get a lot of people that they just want something different, and you know, we'll do an initial consult, you know, and kind of go over things as well for patients. And at the end of the day, they're just like, wow, you know what, this could help me. And we've had patients that, you know, I have one guy that goes to see some top cardiologist in Houston, and yeah, his lipids were normal, blood pressure was normal, you know, A1C was normal. This guy is 67 years old, very fit, works out every day. I mean, really good. But his homocysteine levels were through the roof. And I'm like, every point above 8 is a 10% increase in having a heart attack and stroke.
Oh.
You know, and his homocysteine level was a 23.9.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's super high. We need to fix this. So we put him on a basic supplement because he has genetic SNPs. So we give him a supplement. And in 1 month, we looked at his labs again. His homocysteine went from a 23.9 to a 9.6. We're like, okay, we're in the right direction. This is what we got to do to prevent it. I go, now your risk of having a heart attack and stroke is lower. Your inflammatory marker in your body is lower, but you need to be on this the rest of your life. And he's just like, I don't care. He goes, this is the best I've felt in forever.
Yeah. That's just there's an element about like, because I'm kind of going through it. Like, I think you went on a weight loss journey too, if I remember right as well. Like, I'm kind of getting through now that I'm like down some actual like substantial weight, that I've got this like, holy crap, I feel better. Holy crap, I feel better. I've been in the fog, it seems like, for 20 years, maybe. I don't know. Once I got out of the military.
Yeah.
So I can just understand it, how like the impact that has on a patient, from your perspective. That's got to feel really, really good.
Oh yeah, it's amazing when you start getting them to feel better, and then you start getting these other doctors to feel better. A lot of them, I mean, these guys are already healthy. I mean, they really take care of their body and stuff, but they're missing certain things. So when you put them on a certain nutrient or whatever that their body's deficient in, or because you see elevated homocysteine or whatever, and you say, I'm like, okay, this is the one supplement I need you to be on forever. You can do whatever else you've been doing. And they're just like, it's crazy how that one supplement is making me feel better. And then we get patients that come in for weight loss, right? So we have a woman, she comes in and she's like, I want semaglutide, right? Vanessa,
like self-prescribes, like, I want a compounded version of XYZ.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to pay $1,200 a month for it, but I want it.
Yeah. And then, so Vanessa will look at him. She goes, no, like, you have to meet certain criteria before she'll do it, right?
Yeah.
So, and we require all the labs to get drawn. We'll look at them. And when you have a patient with an insulin level of like 45 or 50, normal should be about 8, right? That means they're hardcore insulin resistant. Those GLP-1s will increase insulin secretion. Those patients usually tend up having a lot more nausea, vomiting, and gas pain, right? And they're just like, I don't feel good. And it's like, yeah, because it's too high. Your insulin levels are way too high. And the GLP-1s are increasing insulin secretion. They're not insulin, but they're increasing insulin secretion, among other things, right? They have a whole bunch of other mechanisms of action. So we don't usually tend to do that with those patients until we can kind of bring it down a bit. So when this girl comes in, I mean, her BMI was probably like 31. She works out every day. She eats healthy. Her husband meal preps for her.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, well, something's wrong. Let's look at all your hormones. We look at her hormones, and it ended up being that she had too much estrogen. She was estrogen dominant, right?
Okay.
And her prolactin levels were a little elevated. And like, okay, you know what? We're going to put you on Chaseberry again, that Vitrex, along with CDG to help offload the estrogens and stuff. And let's just see how you do. And she's like, all right. And she did that. She came back the first month and she had lost like 6 pounds. Well, on her in-body, she lost 6 pounds, but she actually had gained 3 pounds of lean body mass.
Oh, cool.
So she had actually lost 9 pounds of weight, right?
Right.
Of fat.
Yeah.
And so her percent body fat went from like 38% body fat to like 32 or something like that. And then she did another month. Next month she comes in, and she came in because she was dehydrated, right? Well, the in-body's measuring water, is following the flow of water. So if you're dehydrated, there's not enough water, and so your lean body mass is going to be lower. Well, on her, when she got on the scale, her water weight was lower. She had lost 11 pounds, but she had actually lost 15 pounds of fat.
Holy smokes, man.
So she was down to like 28% body fat. So she lost 10% body fat in 2 months.
Holy smokes. That's a lot.
And I'm like, so did you need the semaglutide? And like, no, it's just my hormones. Yeah. And all we had to do was just balance out that little piece. And
there you go.
And we see that all the time with patients. It's just like, oh, I see berberine is good for you. And I'm like, why is it berberine good for you? I was like, if you saw it on TikTok, it doesn't work for everybody. It works for certain people. But you got to look at your labs to see what berberine is actually working on. If not, you're just throwing your money away. And I go, and the insulin level's $25. It's a simple test that we can do.
Yeah.
And we can tell you whether or not it's even going to help you or not,
Nice.
And so, again, we get patients like that, and they come in, they're like, okay, man, all of a sudden I'm doing better. And like, yeah, it's finding out what your body needs. I mean, I have a ton of supplements outside, and I can sell every one of them. I vetted a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's top vendors that I use, like Thorne, Metagenics, Pure Encapsulations, Orthomolecular. But at the same time, it's like, what do you need?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's why I tell patients, like, what do you need? And I go, you go to a traditional doctor, you have depression, you have high blood pressure, they're giving you stuff for a symptom, but that's all they're doing. They're not actually trying to figure out, well, what's really going on with you. And it could be a deficiency in one thing or even, 5 things, and get a multivitamin that has all those things. And all of a sudden you start seeing things improve. And they're just like, well, yeah, I mean, I guess I'll do that. But then, I have one doctor and he's just like, I don't really like what you do because he's really big. He does clinical trial stuff for some of the
Yeah.
GLP-1
Yep.
companies out
Yep.
there. And I go, yeah, well, we were able to get patients off of these drugs and that's not whatever. And he's like, yeah, but you replace their drug with a vitamin. So they're still taking a pill. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't have all the other side effects and they're not adding on and then on medications. And he's like, well, how much does your supplements cost? And I was like, well, this one here that on this one patient, it was like magnesium and then the alpha base, right? So I was like, for a month's supply, I go, they're going to spend probably about $60. And he goes, well, my pills on their insurance are $5 each. And I'm like, that's another problem within healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, okay, yeah, it's $5 per se, but what about all the other side effects from those drugs that are happening? And then now all of a sudden you have patients that are doing worse. And again, that's the whole thing within medicine is like you're just keeping patients sicker. And that's why I talk about, with insurance, because we get doctors that talk, that the problem is insurance companies. I'm like, yeah, it's part of it's insurance companies, but I'll tell you, the biggest problem is the PBMs, and the PBMs have gone so strong that they buy insurance companies, just like CVS buying Aetna.
Yeah.
Right. Optum Rx owning United Healthcare and, the WellMed clinics and all this stuff. And I was like, but those guys made all their money processing prescriptions. That's all they did was process prescriptions. And I go, and then they get the rebates on the back end and stuff. And I go, so these guys have gotten so powerful, have made so much money just from medication. So do you think they want patients off of meds? No, they want patients on meds. And I still remember one patient, he was on like 12 different medications. He's still one of my poster childs. And he comes in here to the pharmacy still like at least once or twice a month. And he had been on insulin for 15 years.
Oh.
15 years on insulin, 230 units of insulin every single day.
Oh.
Worked on his nutrition, gave him the proper nutrients that he needed. He lost a ton of weight. He got within a week, he was off of his insulin. He has not used insulin in 7 years.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And I remember 6 months afterwards, the insurance company's calling. 6 months afterwards, the insurance company's calling and saying, well, why isn't he on those medications? And I'm like, because he doesn't need anymore. They're like, well, we make money off of medications. I'm like, yeah, I know you do, but he doesn't need them.
Yeah. Huh. Wow. So the guy got off insulin. What did you take him down to from 12 medications to what?
He's down on one. He's on a levothyroxine for his thyroid.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah. And even then, too, I wish we could get him off to something else. I mean, he takes another product from Thorne that we use is called Catalyte. And I still remember it was about 4 weeks in, he wasn't feeling good, right? And when you start taking away all these carbohydrates that are spiking insulin and all this stuff and spiking glucose levels, you end up becoming hypovolemic, right? So you get low blood volume. And so you have to give electrolytes and nutrients into your blood to help bring it back up because your body's just peeing out so many different things. And I'm like, look, he went to the doctor and the doctor's like, you need to stop whatever Mike has you on because your kidney function's the worst that it's ever been and you're going to end up on dialysis. That's what she told him. I go, no, start taking these electrolytes. So we put him on Catalyte from Thorne, started taking that. And he went back 3 weeks later, got his labs drawn for her. And then she just threw the papers on the table. She goes, well, just continue whatever Mike has you on. She goes, because your kidney function's the best it's been in 9 years.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of it is just, they're not getting the proper things that we need. Everybody's like, oh, I'm hydrating, I'm drinking water all day. Yeah, but you're not getting the sodium, the potassium, the magnesium that your body needs, that your cells need. But yet doctors tell us like, oh, sodium's going to cause high blood pressure. And I'm like, yeah, but if you have sodium and potassium, like we have these things in our body called sodium potassium pumps. We learned it in undergrad, in biology class. I mean, I even think some of us learned it in high school, right? But yet the salt, the table salt is just sodium. Like, okay, so what if I add sodium and potassium together and some magnesium, and what happens to the body? And now all of a sudden you're hydrating your cells. So now your cells actually have proper hydration. And so when you're taking water, is what I tell the patient, okay, you're drinking water. Water gets absorbed and it's a hypotonic solution, right? There's really nothing in it. It's just water. Well, now it goes into your blood. Well, your blood's like, well, shoot, it's a hypotonic solution. I need to make it isotonic. So what does it do? I need to get nutrients from somewhere. So where does it get the nutrients from? From the cells. It starts pulling nutrients out and into the blood. And so now all of a sudden, your blood is isotonic, but you've lost the supplements that are inside your cells. Now you start giving somebody electrolytes like LMNT, or I'm not a big fan of liquid IV because of the sugar, but I know they were making some changes. But LMNT is one brand that I use. Catalyte is the other one that we use. And you do that for a patient. Now all of a sudden you're giving them a hypertonic solution. Mm-hmm. So when their body's absorbing, it's like, well, I need these nutrients. So these nutrients are going into the cells outside of the blood. And so now you've actually remineralized your cells, where before you weren't doing any of that. Right. And so looking at those little pieces about what's going on and telling people like, okay, what's your hydration status like? What are you, what's your food consumption like? You know, how much protein are you consuming? Protein is one of those big ones too, that we'll look at a patient, we'll tell them to monitor everything. And their protein consumption is like 50 grams a day when they should be consuming like 100, 120, and sometimes even 150 grams of protein every day. But they're not consuming enough because they just, they don't know what to be consuming.
Yeah.
Right?
Dude, so much of it's just, you just didn't know. Right.
Yeah.
Like as a patient, even me, like I think me and Josh, we did this was years ago, but we did like basically a keto diet for a while. We're like, hey, we're going to go do that. Obviously, you know better than me about what it does to you. But I didn't. and I remember having to start taking like actual electrolytes. And because I was just like, and that's what made me finally feel good. I was like, oh God, that's what it was. Like, it was just like, so I don't know, half the battle's just knowing. But it's really hard to probably get, I mean, outside of like looking up YouTube stuff and being your own doctor via Google. Now you have Chat GPT and stuff like that, I guess, but it's hard trying to find resources that you can trust, that aren't trying to also all the time give you a pill or give you a thing like that. So
yeah, and that is true. I mean, I was in the same boat trying to figure out, okay, what's right, you know, what exactly do I need? And everything was trial and error too. Again, it's a member of a lot of failures. And then you just get better and better and better, right? I mean, I remember we used to give patients medications or supplements, and it was $250 worth of supplements. And that was just a basic foundation. And it was just like, okay, so are people going to stay up with this? You know, how are we going to, you know, this is a hard sell, you know? And so it's just simplifying, right? And just kind of saying, and then you perfect your practice, right? And what you're doing and how do you make things better? And so, and then, you know, you learn one piece, you become extra, you know, confident and competent in it. And then you add on to it. And then you add on to it, right? And that's pretty much like the way I see a lot of my life. It's like I start off with one little piece, get really good, and then learn more and learn
broaden
more,
a little bit
more, right? Yeah, you have to. And yeah, it's hard to find the reputable sources. I mean, Dr. Berg for keto is like one of the guys that I would follow a lot. Right now I follow a lot of Gary Brecka, and you know what he does. I'm a huge fan. The other one that I follow a lot is Dr. Attia and what he does. And then of course A4M, right? The American Academy of Anti-Aging, which that's
what I was going to ask you. So like if you're a pharmacist here, listening to this, like what in maybe they're trying to get some grounding or some foundational knowledge in functional medicine. There's varying spectrums that probably are listening to this going, hey, like I already know all the stuff he's talking about, but also have like a little bit of the foundation. And I know, what are the resources you feel like pharmacies can tap into to go, hey, look, this is something patients are asking me about. I want to be a trusted resource for them about this. Like, where do you feel like, as far as like getting educated on this, where pharmacies can tap into to start getting educated?
There's a lot of different places out there. I mean, for me, A4M is where I learned all my stuff. Pam Smith and Jim Laval. Jim Laval's a pharmacist, and he's probably like one of the most knowledgeable pharmacists that I know of, you know, and then you're just getting a lot of people. There's also IFM, which is the Institute of Functional Medicine. You know, Jeffrey Bland, you know, Mark Hyman, all those people are there. The other one, I know there's one specifically for pharmacists, and that's Lauren Castle's group, which is a functional medicine for pharmacists. And so there's different avenues to look at, right? And seeing, but at the same time is you got to start just somewhere. And some of the things are just the basic stuff, right? You can do methylation tests off of genetics. Pure encapsulations will give you a lot of the information that you need, based off of their SNP files. That's one little piece, right? And it's your genetics never change, and that's the thing I like about that one.
Yeah,
is that when you do that, it's something that you're going to need to be on the rest of your life, because your genetics never change, right? And you're trying to give your body the nutrients for that, right? But yeah, you got to start off somewhere. I know we've been working on different types of trainings things within Texas, working with a couple of other pharmacists and trying to help them. One of the other deals that we've considered is, and we have set up with one other pharmacy in Laredo. They refer patients to us. We do the consultation, and then they buy all their supplements, all their prescription drugs from that pharmacy.
For that pharmacy there.
But they have access to the patient note too, so they can go in there and read what we did. And we even give them access to be on the call with the patient, just so they have a better understanding. And it's a learning deal, right? So one of the biggest things I would say is that when you go to like A4M, they dump so much information on you.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But then you get to your practice to do it, and it's just like, well, shoot, what do I do?
Right. Where do I start? Yeah.
Where do I start?
Yeah.
And then, the good thing with I've been doing this for, 12 years now, but like working with Vanessa, it's one of those things where she's actually getting like almost like on the job training, because we're doing case studies with every patient as we're going. And she's actually seeing like, okay, well, this and this, and like, okay. And then she'll ask, well, why did you do this? And why did you do that? And what are your reasonings before? And I go, I've tried this before, but I haven't gotten the results that I was looking for. Right. And so we move around a lot of those things, but not everybody gets that. To do like an in-depth, like sitting down at a clinic and just seeing how things move and seeing like the wheels turning, you don't get a lot of that. And I wish it was a basic treatment algorithm. And for most things it is, but then you also got to, take the patient into consideration. What can they afford and what can they not afford?
Sure. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
what's going to keep them on the regimen, if that's what it deems to be necessary? Like, how do you do that in a way where you feel like they can follow it?
Yeah, because it all comes back to money, because a lot of this stuff is not covered by insurance. That's the bad part, which, hopefully things change and we do get more insurance companies seeing that patients are feeling better and their labs are improving. They're no longer pre-diabetic anymore, and, a lot of this stuff too starts in the school system. So, we work and been talking to the school district and like improving the food that's being served to the kids. I mean, that's big.
Yeah.
And, we're just being exposed to so much crap. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be changed. And I think the good thing is, we're seeing some of those changes within the FDA. They recently were having some hearings on like red dye 40.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so they were like, well, yeah, I mean, it's banned for using in cosmetics, but yet we allow it in our food system. Why is that? Right. And so those are different things that we're trying to get people to open their eyes to and say, hey, you know what, let's make these simple changes. All these toxins, all these pollutants, all these cancer causing things, let's get rid of that within our system and we'll start feeling better. But it's awesome. I mean, when you go back and think of like what a pharmacist can do, I mean, there's so many differences that the doctors are just like, wow, I didn't know there was a difference in that. And a lot of your primary care, I mean, your cardiology, maybe your specialty in some things like using, Benicar instead of, Cozar, right? Instead of, people are like, well, no, this is the foundation. This is, well, everybody uses either lisinopril or losartan, but it's because those were like some of the first ones that were ever put on the market. So that's what they know. But now there's newer ones, and even Benicar, it's already generic. And I'm telling people, it's like, yeah, this one works a lot better. It'll increase vasodilation. It increases nitric oxide production. It's a lot better than losartan, and it's going to be about the same price. It's generic now, and it's multi-source generic. So I think a 30-day supply, we sell them for like $6, to patients. And blood pressure is better controlled with that than it is with, let's say, valsartan or losartan. And the doctors, when we talk to them, they're like, well, I didn't know there was a difference. I thought it was if you're in that class of drug, you're in that class of drug.
Just
And I'm
in it.
like, no. But that's where they need the pharmacist to help them understand some of those things, and us knowing what the pricing is and saying like, okay, this is more affordable than these other things, right? Yeah, so pharmacists in healthcare are so underutilized. I mean, my goal ever since before I even started pharmacy school was getting pharmacists embedded into clinics. And, I love AmCare pharmacists. I'm not a huge fan of the regular pharmacist that is just doing what guidelines tell you, because the guidelines are all pushing a drug. And I'm like, if you don't fix the foundation, you're not fixing anything. And when they go back and look at these guidelines, one of the first ones, usually first step is, monitoring the labs and all this stuff. Then it'll say like assess nutritional deficiencies, but yet in the guidelines, it doesn't tell you what nutritional deficiencies to address and what to look for. Right. And so these providers say, oh no, you need this blood pressure med, and it's funny because sometimes I'll see patients and, we have a guy that's like 350 pounds, check his blood pressure and it's normal.
Well, yeah,
right.
Yeah. And
you would think, and, you see these people, and I even have a small person like that 67-year-old man. He weighs probably like 150, 140, ripped, he's got abs and everything like that. High blood pressure.
Oh, man.
Oh, but lose weight and you're going to lower your blood pressure. Like, it's not always about the weight, It's about what's going on inside your blood and what inflammatory responses you have, and looking at all those different pieces. And I think that's where we're missing the boat with a lot of this within healthcare.
Wow. Well, I always learn a lot talking to you, and I think I heard a bunch of acronyms sometimes that I don't. I acted like I understood, but I didn't. But that's okay.
Well, you paid it off very well, because I was like, this guy knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was taking it all in.
He's been following me for years, so he knows what I think and how fast my brain goes.
For sure. No. You're probably going to get contacted by people. So before I move on to prescribables, but what is a good place to I guess land in your inbox in some way if somebody wants to connect with you about, I don't know, like anything, like
anything. Yeah, no, they can email me, Michael, Michael at mynurx.com. That's a quick, easy way. That's the one that I look at the most, because they get tagged in my emails, so automatically I'll see them. And then I have like 15,000 emails from jug vendors and stuff, but that's the one that I look at the most. Then the other one, just going to the website, Healthy Vida Clinic, if it's more towards clinic-based stuff. We're working on the website, but, we have some links on there, like to join now. And in our form that we have, that's just getting all basic information. It explains the process of things that we do. And then there's a pricing options, and then you can continue on if you want.
Cool.
So that would be the best way to get a hold of us. If you have any questions, or just like, hey, how do I do this? Or, maybe they want to be another pharmacy that wants to join, like we have that Laredo pharmacy. But as of right now, we're only working with Texas. We're working with some other providers that are in other states, or licensed in other states, that really love what we do, because they are patients as well.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So I don't let anybody get out of here without prescribables. So, all that is, what are you reading, watching, listening to, doing that, the pharmacies, pharmacists and pharmacy techs of the world that listen to this could be into?
Ooh, what they would be into.
No, whatever you're into.
But
that's
pharmacy wise, so anything with the Ultimate Human podcast, Gary Brecka.
Okay.
That's one of the big ones that I listen to. He has really some top-notch people that come on there. That's probably one of the biggest ones that I listen to. And that's within the pharmacy world.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of the pharmacy world, the other one that I'm really big into is the Sean Ryan show.
Yeah. Is he former SEAL, I think, or whatever? Right?
Yeah, CIA guy, and
Yep.
there was a podcast with Sarah Adams, and she's a CIA targeter, and a lot of cool stuff. It's really cool, and opens your eyes to a lot of things that we don't know, and so you rely on these people to kind of like tell you what's really going on out there, and then it's up to you. You got to make your your choices and decisions, like what you're going to believe, what you're not going to believe, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's really cool and interesting. So that's probably like one of the other ones, podcast wise, that I listen to. Joe Rogan is another one whenever he has like Rhonda Patrick on, or
Yeah, he has a lot of people in the functional world.
mhm.
I think he's a believer in that, and maybe even a patient in some way. But yeah, he has a lot of folks in the functional world, I feel like, on the podcast.
Yeah, Brigham Bueller's another guy that's there on his podcast, and I've listened to Brigham's podcast a few times with Joe Rogan. Casey and Callie Means, they're really big, and they have a book out, and it's called Good Energy. Great, reading. And it's all about, a lot of things. If it's dealing about health and wellness, like I'm in it. I'm like, I want to know what are the studies, and then I'll go in there and I'll validate, and I'm look for those studies too. And I'm like, people tell me things, and they'll send me links on Instagram, like, hey, you should check this out. And I'll look at it, and I'm like, okay, well, what studies are they quoting? And when people quote stuff without any studies, I'm kind of like, how truthful is that, So then I have to go back, and then, I use PubMed a lot, and then I'll try and look anywhere I can for other additional information. But it's really cool. I think, those are the big podcasts and different things that I love reading and listening to. Yeah.
The one I brought, which is in the vein of what you're kind of into, it sounds like, because they cite a ton of different like research, is a podcast called Science Versus. And
Science Versus.
And literally, it's these. Usually, it's one lady that hosts it. She's from Australia, so you got to listen to the Australian accent. But I think it's a Spotify owned podcast now, so it might only be on Spotify. But they really take a lot of these things, like around, like I don't know, someone told you to drink 8 glasses of water, or they actually challenged the gallon. Like there was a push to drink a gallon of water a day for a while, right? And like they literally just went through a bunch of peer reviewed and interviewing experts and things like that, and did a bunch of tests, people who are doing tests around this kind of stuff. And they just take you through, and they give you the result. Hey, look, based off the evidence we found, and they'll even list out on the podcast notes of like all the different things they cited to be like, hey, this is why you should or shouldn't do that thing. And this is the potential effect on you in some ways. Basically, the drinking a gallon of water thing, it sounds like from their perspective is like, just listen to your body. It'll tell you when it's thirsty, and you're probably okay. And I even talked about drinking a gallon, but like actually made your brain swell a little bit. People were getting headaches. People were reporting a lot of headaches. So just stuff like that, which is something that's kind of along the same lines of, kind of sounds like the stuff you like to listen to. They just did one on fiber, which was cool. So,
oh wow. Yeah. I have to go back and listen to that. But yeah, so I tell people too, is like, even too much of something in excess will hurt you, right? Just like anything. And I was like, water's good for you, but too much water can kill you.
Yeah.
Just the way it is. Like, what? And I'm like, yeah, it can kill you if you drink too much.
Yeah.
But and there's a lot of different things out there that you have to look at and kind of gauge. Okay, and everybody's different. And that's what we really push. There was a doctor in Brownsville. I used to like the way he would say it, and he's like, everybody is different. Like, so it was everybody, right? But it was everybody.
Got it. I see.
So everybody together, and then everybody separate is different. And it's like, it's true. Like, everybody is different. What works for one person may not work for you, and everybody's, wanting the exact same thing and saying, oh yeah, we're going to do this, and it's like, well, no, you understand what your body needs. And just like what they were saying is, your body's going to tell you when you need water, when it needs certain things. Like for me, I keep a bottle or bag of Baja Gold sea salt, and actually like it's right here. And so I have my Baja Gold sea salt next to me. So when I start getting thirsty, I take some Baja Gold sea salt and drink some water. And I always drink that with my water, and that helps kind of hydrate your body as well, helping move the nutrients in. But yeah, it's one of those things, like I know what my body needs and when it needs it. And then that's what I start sticking with. But yeah, it's awesome. I'm going to have to look at that now.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool. Like, they do a lot of different topics. So some of it's health stuff, some of it's just other things. But it's cool. Well, man, dude, you talked to us for a while. I mean, I really appreciate you being on and kind of being the leadoff batter for 25. It's been a while since we've filmed a podcast, and apologies for everybody who some people have let me know, hey, when y'all doing another one? Did y'all stop doing it? No, we're not. We've got the whole year planned already, I think, at this point for the most part. But man, I really appreciate you being on, giving us your time. Appreciate how much you help other pharmacists as well all the time. I know it, not only in your tenure with the Texas Pharmacy Association, but I know you're just someone who's makes themselves very available for anybody who really just calls and goes, hey, look, I'm thinking about this topic in some way. And you're usually always quick to be like, just jump on the phone.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. We always like helping other pharmacists, especially people that want to learn anything. You know, we're working on some stuff for trainings, you know, to try and help, you know, get you going, right? Because we have to start somewhere. And that's kind of like with our EMR system, because I know we talked about that real quick.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've looked at different ones. One that we're using right now is called Charm EHR. One of our big things was bidirectional lab interfaces, right? So to get that information in. And then the other big thing was electronic prescribing for the providers, right?
Yeah.
And then multi-locations. How well can you add up multi-locations and being able to control like from a multi-store, you know, aspect and seeing everything that's going on. And so that's pretty much one of the ones that we found. There's a couple of other companies out there that can do stuff as well, but the price point too, as you're building things out, as you get to using them. I mean, some of these companies are charging like $500 a month, and then it's like a guarantee, like they want a 1 year contract that's auto renewed, and it's like for a year. And it's like, well, what if like month 15 something happens and I need to switch over? They're like, well, you're screwed. You got to pay the rest of the year. And so Charm was one of those that it's a month to month. You know, there's no contracts. You can go either like from the starting point, which they charge you per encounters, which is every Prognos note, or they charge you, you know, just per provider. So if you get to like 400 patients or whatever, it's like, well, it's cheaper to do the $200 a month compared to the 25 cents for every chart note you do, right? So as they're transitioning from one to the other, it helps. There's other ones called Practice Better. It's great for nutritionists. It's great for pharmacists. That's one that I use if there's no prescribing, because you can prescribe supplements on there, recommend supplements that connect with FullScript, and they have a Rupa connection. That's another big one that's one that we've used probably for like the last 4 years. But, you know, having a prescriber on board of doing this, you know, and then just thinking about the future is like, what else do we want to do? It's like, okay, we want to be able to grow, and so we need multi-locations. So that's why we ended up going with this other one for now, which I know probably in a year something else will come up, and hey, this is something else we got to look for, and this is something else we got to do. But you know, talking to them, and they're like, well, if you're not a prescriber prescribing medications, we can give it to you at a discounted rate. So those are some things that we're doing, trying to figure out even like group rates within you know, things that we're looking at for, okay, so if we can get, you know, 50 independent pharmacies in Texas on like what would be our rate compared to just a single store, right? So we're looking at different things like that and just kind of figuring out, okay, how do we expand? And one of the crazy things too is like, I've thought about going back to school, and I want to go to med school. But the only reason I want to go to med school is to be able to have these multi-clinics with all these pharmacists on board. And I think that's genius but you're trying to convince certain doctors to do it now. And so that was my goal of doing that. But now that we're talking to more and more of these physicians, a lot of these physicians are like, dude, I'm on board. I want to do this.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's like, okay, well, maybe I don't need to go to
maybe I don't need to go take the 4-6 year journey.
Be this far in debt, or you know,
right.
And like, I have the people to work with now. So yeah, it's awesome, and just, you know, building something, right, and seeing it come out the way you want it to be and stuff, and having the right people that you're working with as well, and all these different projects is cool. So yeah, I know we talked about very quickly was about what EMR and how we chose the EMR, and that's pretty much how I ended up where I'm at.
Well, thanks for keeping me on track. But that's good. Dude, you're always so open with what you're doing, and you know, like I know not everybody this is going to be not every pharmacist or pharmacy's thing that they want to jump into, but man, so many people asking about it all the time, and trying to find resources for it. You're always such an open book about all of it, man. I know that everyone you've helped probably appreciates it. And so, but dude, just again, thanks for being on. Thanks for giving us the time of the day that you did, man. And, we'll see you again. Hopefully we'll see you in a few months at Connect. We got Connect coming in June here in Dallas. So already got a lot of people more people that signed up so far than we've ever seen. So it's super cool. So
that's awesome. Yeah, we're planning on going since it's so close to home and everything.
Yeah.
So
well, good stuff.
Definitely. But thank you for letting me kick off the 2025 year.
It's good.
I mean, I'm hoping that it's going to be the best year ever, right?
Yeah, that's where my head is. I know it's tough out there and reimbursements and all of that, and everyone's pushing for HR 9096, which we all want to happen, and or a form of it in some way. So, I know we're committed to it. I know every pharmacist we talk to on this show is too. So, and Michael, I know you do a lot of good work locally too for the state level. So,
yeah,
everybody's trying to make a difference.
Yes, sir.
We can.
All righty, Mark.
All right, brother. Hey, have a good one. Bye, everybody.
Yeah, you too.
See ya.